no problems. 36-year-old Chris Paul becoming the oldest player to sign a $100 million contract in league history, and does so to remain in Phoenix. He signs a 4-year, $120 million deal. Kyle Lowry, this is a tough one for me and Arda. Raptor fans, he is moving on. We knew he was going to move on. He moved on to Miami, signed a 3-year, $90 million deal. Goran Dragic going to Toronto on that sign and trade. Lonzo Ball moving on to Chicago. Just some of these signings on a busy day in free agency as we welcome in Adrian Wojnarowski. And Woj, again, busy day in free agency, lots of movement happening, but there's also plenty of superstars in line for contract extensions. Let's start there. What's the latest?
Yeah, just reported that Atlanta Hawks All-Star Trea Young has agreed to a 5-year, potentially a $207 million designated rookie max extension. And also Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of the Oklahoma Thunder, a 5-year max extension. And so those are, we'll start to see those as we move forward here in free agency. But Trea Young off a tremendous season, advancing to the conference finals in the East, and obviously Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's really the key player in that rebuild in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, both those guys worth every penny, and like you mentioned, more big names likely to come. Going back to today, and the Miami Heat, they look like big winners on Monday. Pat Riley, very aggressive, making the biggest splash, landing Kyle Lowry from the Raptors. How much better are they now, and are they done?
Well, signing massive, and I mean massive tickets. The first day of free agency, full of action. The big players were on South Beach. Miami Heat working towards completing a sign and trade to bring Kyle Lowry from the Raptors. The 2019 champion is expected to snag a 3-year deal. Then they started working on some of their own, like Jimmy Butler, getting him a max extension. The 31-year-old led the Heat to the 2020 NBA Finals, posted career highs last season in field goal percentage, assists, and led the NBA in steals. And the Heat also took care of sharpshooter Duncan Robinson, agreeing on a 5-year, $90 million deal. That's the largest ticket by any undrafted player in league history. Robinson joining Steph and Clay as the only players multiple seasons of 250 made threes while shooting over 40%. And the latest word, ESPN's Tim Bontemps reporting that P.J. Tucker, a big piece out of Milwaukee, signs a 2-year, $15 million deal with the Heat. So how Miami will project to the floor next year, I mean, looking really good. Really sharp. He'd still have work to do filling out the rest of their roster. Bobby Marks joined us last hour and said even with all of this, they are still under the salary cap, which is remarkable. I personally gave Woj the day off. Usually on one of his busiest days of the year, I will call, text, or email him and just say, hey, how you doing? Like, light conversation, really bothering him, and he's always polite to answer back and say, I'm doing fine. So let's focus on what has been a crazy day and night in the NBA. Anybody do it better than Pat Riley and the Heat tonight? How did they get Kyle Lowry out of Toronto there?
Yeah, really remarkable for Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra, the Miami Heat, to not have any cap space and go out and get, really perhaps the premier available point guard on the market, who is looking to change teams, and Kyle Lowry. He has long been intrigued with the idea of coming to Miami, teaming up with Jimmy Butler, and he just fits in perfectly. This is the ultimate win now team in the league, and as you said, Duncan Robinson, he reported 5 years, $90 million. PJ Tucker, this is a team that's going to be deep and certainly is going to be a real factor again in the Eastern Conference.
And that Toronto championship team of just 2 years ago, I mean, it's pretty recognizable. It's how quickly the league does change these days. Woj, the easy question is, how did Chris Paul wind up staying Phoenix? But I think the more interesting question is, how close was Chris Paul to actually exiting Phoenix?
Not close at all. When he really pushed that trade from Oklahoma City to the Suns last year, it was to be there long term. Certainly, it had great success, and it was just a matter of just a negotiation, getting to a number. 4 years, I'm told, could be worth as much as $120 million with this new deal. Certainly probably the last deal of his career, perhaps at 36 years old, and a team in Phoenix, wants to get back to the NBA Finals, have a chance to win it, but he loves it there. Listen, he has transformed that organization, and for Chris Paul, it was just a matter of making the money work, and they got that done tonight, and they'll be back with Devin Booker next season. They got Campaign re-signed, bringing in JaVale McGee, and they'll work on extensions next for DeAndre Ayton and Mikal Bridges.
Chris Paul still chasing that elusive ring. He is expected to be ready for the start of training camp, had the left wrist surgery done. So, Woj, thanks for joining us. Maybe I'll call you tomorrow and just say hi.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, see you.
Good. I look forward to it.
I'm sure you do. That's sarcastic. Woj all over it as usual here on Sports. And some other notable players staying, but including Cavs big man Jared Allen. His deal's for 5 years and $100 million. Who didn't get $100 million today? I mean, look, these are all really good players. Free about these guys are all signed at big tickets. And the first day of free agency full of action. The big players were on South Beach. Miami Heat working towards completing a sign and trade, bringing Kyle Lowry and the Raptors. 2019 champion expect to snag a 3-year deal. Then the Heat turn towards one of their own, work on a max extension with Jimmy Butler. Have to have him in the fold. The 31-year-old led the Heat to the 2020 NBA Finals, posted career highs last season in field goal percentage, assists, and led the NBA in steals. And also the Heat took care of sharpshooter Duncan Robinson, agreed to a 5-year, $90 million deal. Get this, that's the largest ticket by any undrafted player in league history. Robinson joined Steph Curry. Robinson joining Steph Curry and Klay Thompson as the only players with multiple seasons of 250 million threes while shooting over 4%. And then the lead word, Bontemps is confirming P.J. Tucker signs a 2-year, like $15 million deal. So you look at how the Heat project for next season. Let's just say they project really well. Wow. A star-stud lineup they could roll out on court now. NBA front office insider Bobby Marks joining us now. And Pat Riley had himself a day, huh?
Man, you got to bring a big calculator for this.
Wow. and we have something along those lines here, but what a day for Riley and the Heat. Maybe completely transforming their roster now. Obviously, took care of some of their own. But you tell me, where do you want to start here, and how much better are the Heat today than they were yesterday?
Yeah, well, I'll start with it. They're a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference. I'm putting them up there with Brooklyn. I'm putting them up with Milwaukee, ahead of Philadelphia. I think these moves solidify that, especially with Kyle Lowry. I think the gymnastics as far as how they were able to do everything, it started yesterday with Goran Dragic exercising his $19.4 million option. That allowed them to stay over the salary cap. They didn't go under the cap. They could have signed Lowry outright if they wanted to. They didn't do that. And when you take a player out like, Dragic and probably Precious Achiuwa, and then you add Kyle, into the mix, his number is going to be a little bit higher than that 25, right around 27. That keeps you in the game here. What they were able to do, though, is Duncan Robinson had his bird right, so now you can exceed the salary cap to bring him back right around $16 million. And you keep on adding, and they'll be able to stay under the luxury tax, under the hard cap. When you look at here, they're under. And then, you look at a player like, we'll see PJ Tucker's down here. I think we might even have him in the fours. Yeah, we got him in the fours. And then you had PJ Tucker, because what happened is that you still had here's PJ, you still had your mid-level exception. So you had your $9.5 million mid-level exception. PJ gets about $7 million of that. And then when you slide in there, you're still under the luxury tax. And
How's that possible?
And you can fill out the rest of your roster with minimum guys. You're probably going to lose Kendrick Nunn, who's a restricted free agent. But yeah, you basically have turned over your roster, 2 years after they made the Jimmy Butler deal, something to nothing, and now this is a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah. That is amazing how quickly you can transform. It's also amazing how you can go the other way. Like Toronto was 2 years ago, right?
Yep.
The Raptors are unrecognizable now in that championship club. What happens if I tap on this, Kyler? Like the whole thing explodes?
No, not yet.
All right. Well,